Warning, this episode contains explicit content. No, not in the way you're thinking. There's no profanity, no scandal, just raw, unfiltered, emotionally drenched poetry. The kind of content that says, I met you 5 minutes ago and now I've assigned my eternal happiness to your eyebrows. Welcome to Perfectly Poetic, the podcast that celebrates poetry and sometimes slaps it gently across the face. This is the second installment in our series on Romanticism, the movement that said, to heck with Enlightenment reason, I want to drown in feelings like a Victorian toddler in a sea of violets. And today, we're wading through the side of Romanticism that is gloriously, extravagantly too much. The poems that make you go, wow, and why, at the same time. The literary version of texting someone, I know we just matched, but I'd die for you. This is the part of Romanticism that whispers, I just met you, and now I must perish in a field of poppies because your eyes remind me of my childhood dreams. These are the poems that declare eternal love after 2 glances and a shared sigh, that fall to their knees before a woman who merely existed near them, that confuse sincerity with melodrama and vulnerability with manipulation. These are the poems that don't walk in beauty, they stumble in it, weeping. Let's begin. Romanticism erupted as a reaction, a rebellion against the Enlightenment's cold calculations and relentless logic. Science explained the world, but it didn't soothe the soul. The movement prioritized imagination over intellect, emotion over logic, beauty over order, and in that glorious explosion of emotional liberty, a few poets decided to take things a little too far. Romantic poets said, feelings are facts, and if they aren't, we'll just feel harder. But here's the twist. Romanticism didn't just feel deeply, it glorified that feeling. It put pain and passion on a pedestal. Suffering, noble. Yearning, poetic. Emotional regulation, weakness. To them, love wasn't something you grew with another person over time. It was something you drowned in, often, and preferably in moonlight. This created a culture of emotional extremity where love wasn't something you built, it was something that happened to you, fully formed, like divine lightning. This tendency to elevate emotional above experience, fantasy above fact, wasn't just a poetic flourish. It was an entire philosophical stance. Romanticism said, truth doesn't live in what is measurable. Truth lives in what is felt fiercely. Now, that's beautiful-ish. But it's also dangerous. Because when perception replaces reality, we stop seeing people as people, and we start seeing them as projections. And while this gave us some breathtaking poetry, it also gave us some of the most absurdly theatrical declarations of affection the literary world has ever seen, which, plot twist, is still happening today. The apps may be digital, the candles may be LED, but the emotional behavior, it's identical. We begin with Lord Byron. Think of him as the literary equivalent of a leather jacket-wearing baritone who once said, I love you, to a woman and why are you crying? In the same sentence. Let's read Byron's most famous work in full. She Walks in Beauty from 1814. She walks in beauty like the night of cloudless climes and starry skies. And all that's best of dark and bright meet in her aspect and her eyes. Thus mellowed to that tender light which heaven to gaudy day denies. One shade the more, one ray the less, had half impaired the nameless grace which waves in every raven tress, or softly lightens o'er her face, where serenely sweet express how pure, how dear their dwelling place. And on that cheek and o'er that brow, so soft, so calm yet eloquent, the smiles that win, the tints that glow, but tell of days in goodness spent, a mind at peace with all below, a heart whose love is innocent. This poem has been quoted in everything from wedding invitations to soap bottles. But here's what nobody talks about. Byron didn't even know this woman. She walked into a room in a black mourning dress, and he decided she was purity incarnate, emotionally angelic, and bathed in cosmic harmony. Not based on what she said, not based on her choices, just based on her face. He doesn't know her favorite book. He doesn't know if she recycles, but he's already built a shrine. And isn't that how most people date today? You see someone, you're charmed by the aesthetic, and suddenly they've been cast in your personal rom-com without an addition. Byron is projecting, not poetry as observation, but as obsession. This isn't about her. This is about how she makes him feel. She is simply a screen onto which he's projecting his unresolved longing for beauty, innocence, and validation. In 2025, this is your Hinge dating bio, starting with empath, old soul, not here for games, and ending with, she ghosted me after one match, but I think I saw God in her profile picture. Now, let's talk about Felicia Hemans, Queen of Tragedy. If Victorian poetry had an Oscar for most dramatic overuse of heroic death, she would sweep the category every year. Let's revisit Casabianca, a poem recited by schoolchildren for decades, and you'll see why. The boy stood on the burning deck whence all but he had fled. The flame that lit the battle's wreck shone round him o'er the dead. Yet beautiful and bright he stood, as born to rule the storm, a creature of heroic blood, a proud though childlike form. The flames rolled on, he would not go without his father's word, that father, faint in death below, his voice no longer heard. Here's the TLDR. The ship is on fire, the crew is evacuated, and this kid is just standing there, literally on fire, because his dad told him not to move. It's tragic, sure, but it's also deeply absurd. Romanticism had a thing for beautiful suffering, but Hemans takes it to the next level. She makes child death poetic, noble, and weirdly passive-aggressive. You can feel the subtext. See what happens when you love too purely? You burst into flames. This poem is not just sad, it's weaponized grief wrapped in patriotism and daddy approval. And in modern times, this is emotional martyrdom. It's the ex who posts, I stayed even when it hurt, because that's what love does. No, that's what codependency does. Hemans, you need a therapist and a fire extinguisher. Enter Thomas Moore, Irish poet, ballad king, emotional manipulator with a harp. Let's read his full poem. Oh, call it by some better name. Oh, call it by some better name, for friendship sounds too cold, while love is now a worldly flame whose shrine must soon grow cold. But call it what you will, my own, oh, call it what you will. It is not sorrow, though I've known the pang of sorrow still. It is not joy, though now no more its ecstasy thrills my heart, and when the weary day is o'er, I cannot say depart. There's something in each passion's tone, a sadness in its smile, a blending of the bliss and moan, a tearful heaven the while. Then call it not a too fond dream, a folly that's forgot. Our hearts may lose their fervent beam, but mine shall not, oh not. Then every calmer joy be mine, that life's dear bond endears, be friendship's name in vain divine, for love that lives in tears. This is Moore's poetic version of I'm fine, really, I just didn't expect you to move on so fast. He's not asking for love, he's asking for a new category of grief-flavored affection that keeps him emotionally attached but never accountable. It's situationship poetry, before the term even existed. This is the friend who sends long texts with phrases like, I know we said we're just friends, but I still can't sleep without thinking about your laugh. Bro, call your therapist, not her. Letitia Elizabeth Landon, or LEL, wrote like sadness was a competitive sport. She combined floral metaphors with gothic tragedy in a way that would make even Lana Del Rey say, "Girl, tone it down." As an example, here is her poem, The Grave of a Suicide. They laid him in the earth and flung the cold damp clay on his white young brow. Not a prayer was said, not a knell was rung, yet all men know his story now. A poet's soul had the dreamer lone, a poet's harp in his dying sigh. His life was a song, too sweet in tone, and it closed in the music of agony. He had drank the cup where passion's fire and venom deadly were richly blent. He had loved with a love that required a lyre, but could not live on its own content. This is not a poem. This is a sad girl Pinterest board set to organ music. And yet, she captures something real. The fear that our love, our poetry, our essence might be too fragile for this cruel and different world, which is beautiful. But also, maybe someone could have invited him to brunch and asked how he was doing before we made it a ballad. Shelley's love philosophy. The fountains mingle with the river, and the rivers with the ocean. What is all this sweet work worth, if thou kiss not me? Shelley is essentially saying, look, nature is hooking up. Why are you resisting destiny? This is manipulative logic disguised as poetic yearning. It's the old school equivalent of saying the stars aligned and we both like pesto. Obviously, we're soulmates. Let's zoom out for a minute. Romanticism told us that love should be transcendent, immediate, all-consuming, poetic. Modern dating tells us that love should be efficient, swipeable, slightly detached. And yet, we still yearn for that romantic intoxication. We're just embarrassed to admit it. We construct relationships like Pinterest boards. We write bios like resumes. We confuse chemistry with destiny and connection with a well-worded text thread. We've become curators of connection, projecting fantasy onto people we barely know, then grieving the loss of that fantasy when reality sets in. So maybe the truest thing Romanticism gave us was this: love isn't rational, but it also isn't always real. It's real when it survives imperfection, when it's patient, unpoetic, and occasionally annoying. The Romantics gave us the emotional vocabulary, but they often lacked the patience to build what real love requires: commitment, compromise, and someone who remembers to buy the bloody toilet paper. So, the next time you write someone a sonnet after a second date, pause, breathe, maybe don't. Romanticism is beautiful, but it's also a little unhinged. Like wine, it's best enjoyed in moderation. Unless, of course, you're Lord Byron, in which case chaos is the appetizer. I'm Alan, and this has been Perfectly Poetic. Until next time, stay poetic, stay grounded, And maybe don't assign your eternal destiny to someone just because they made you laugh at a taco truck. And for the love of Byron, don't text your ex.